Okay, so welcome guys to Ibrahim and Kai podcast. This is our 24th episode, as far as I remember. Me and Ibrahim, we haven't recorded for a while, but today we have a really special, and today we have a really special guest just to make up the two other episodes that we missed for the past weeks. And it is Epidemic. Epidemic, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Welcome to the show, Epidemic.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me. And I do apologize for the delay, since
Oh man, it's okay. It's okay.
That's all right.
But for those who don't know who Epidemic is, he is a friend of mine, and he studied international relationship in university. He didn't study like art related stuff, but he still ended up doing art stuff right now. But when I met Epidemic, he was actually really interested in filmmaking and graphic design, even music actually, specifically music. Ibrahim, you probably didn't know that, but he did really good, like, I would say like disco type of music, right? How would I describe your music style?
Yeah, EDM, electronic dance.
EDM, yeah. I really liked it
cool.
because, by the way, after the podcast, you should listen to his music. Like when I heard his music, I kind of
definitely do that.
Imagined a lot of like cinematic visuals in my mind. Like I wanted to use one of your music for like a editorial video actually, but. Anyways, his music is really good. He's good in graphic design, also in filmmaking. So I would say that you kind of touched on multiple fields in the art sector. Is that correct?
Well, first of all, thanks. And second of all, I guess I just like creating stuff. So you could say jack of all trades, master of none. I wouldn't consider myself like a expert in any specific field. But I'm like really into anything that is artistic or creative.
Okay, so Ibrahim, you can cut in whenever you want, okay?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, but I was just gonna say that's good also, like that you had backgrounds of, and all of us have been at a certain point, like have tasted all kind of sorts of like aspects of the creative field, whether that is design, filmmaking, or photography, and it's always good, or music in your case, right? So that's also quite good that you did that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's episode, I think this is really interesting, especially with Epidemic being here, because we wanted to talk about the creative industry in general. I don't know if you watched the YouTube channel Crystal, The Future. Have you heard of it?
I know, yeah.
You know about it, right? And he actually talked about this automation. The automation of the creative industry. And some people, when they first heard of it, they would assume that automation in creative industry means that the AI is just going to be creative for you. It's going to replace our creativity. But when you really look into it, it's kind of not what we expect it to be. But it's more like they're doing the kind of like a template for us. Right now, that's what I see. We see more and more templates. And in a way, it kind of just took away certain works that we used to have to do. For example, we see the emergence of Squarespace. We all know Squarespace or Stock Photos website. They kind of just did the work for you, so you can skip all of that stuff and focus on the message that you want to bring for whatever you're doing. And I think even for musics, you see Artlist, Epidemic Sound. People don't really hire musicians, especially here in Taiwan. We don't hire a lot of musicians anymore. We just buy a subscription for like a couple of months, and we just use music from their website, and we just put it in our commercial. And so I wouldn't call it like automation, but it's definitely taking over a huge chunk of works from artists nowadays, right? Like I'm really curious, what's your take on like automation for creative industry? Do you think it's possible, or you think it's just like a shift? It's not really happening.
Well, that's it's a tough question, honestly, because right now we're experiencing kind of a really changing. It's a very dynamic, industry, and everything is changing really fast, and especially given this COVID thing. More and more people are in front of a computer, and more people have access to whatever they want to design. If you have access to literally any sort of media, you can go create your own music, easily. There are already, easy to follow tutorials or things that are free and available. And I just think that this is not really automation. This is just, I don't know how to put it exactly, eloquently, but this is, I think, making the entire industry become more high skilled, and by taking all of that stuff that you can find online, it's not really unique. It's not really all that creative, maybe, because for instance, you said Epidemic sound. Maybe you and I both the same kind of music for our respective podcasts or projects. So it is quite likely that you and I use exactly the same song. So it's not really unique. So for that, you will still need to hire a high level musician or something like that. And I just think that what you mentioned as automation or this paradigm shift, it's kind of implies that the industry is becoming more and more highly skilled. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, I personally think that's a very good point that you're making, and basically it's that like we have reached a point that there has been things that have been like assets and systems that have been standardized, right? And
Right.
they are just good enough that they just work, right? Like you can go on Squarespace, like platforms like Squarespace or Epidemic Sounds, where like you can find templates and like already set tracks of like music tracks, right? Or stock photography websites, stock footage websites, right? And they have taken over the small consumer market. But at the
Yeah.
same time, and like their designs are really good, but at the same time, like these designs are kind of like repetitive over time, right? And even though they're good, we still need some sort of like if you like on a big scale and a large scale, if you want something that is customized and that is specific for a certain audience or a certain type of work, then you would eventually have to hire someone, right?
Exactly.
And I think like the small consumer market that like operates on a day-to-day basis, I think like these assets and these templates are good enough for that. But like when it comes to customized work, obviously like you eventually need to hire some sort of a creative, right? And this goes back to the idea of creativity, right? Like how much like the mundane, like especially like what Kai mentioned, like the mundane daily work that doesn't require creative thinking is definitely not replaced and is not going to be replaced anytime soon, right? So far what we have seen is just things that are mundane and kind of don't require thinking and creative process. These are the things that we have seen that have been replaced, right? And that's how it's been throughout in the industry so far, I think.
It's actually quite interesting because Rainbeck said that people might use the same music in two completely different commercial, and it actually happens a lot. Like I actually have like an inside joke with my ex-colleague before, because we used to make a commercial, and then we had to look for music, and then it took us like 3 days to find this specific music. But after this commercial was aired, I see every week I would see one commercial that used that music. Literally every week I would find one commercial that I saw on TV, on Instagram, that used that music, and I would just keep on sending to my ex-colleague. It's a kind of like a joke. Every time we heard that music, we send it to each other. So as you said, I think that it kind of lost the uniqueness of, you can say, the brand or the whatever creative work that you're doing. And it kind of like the way Ibrahim you said it, like you said that the lower end, these things are kind of like satisfying the lower end of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct? Like people who cannot customize their artwork, whether it's music or logo, whatever, they use these services. But
it's things that you want to push quickly, basically, right? So
exactly.
You want a video very fast, then you bring a template, you bring a already ready song, you bring all these stuff, you put them together, and then you publish, right?
Or cheaply.
Yeah.
But it kind of made me think that, like, we all know that art itself does have an impact on brands and marketing, whatever it is. But I start to question, like, if we made it like with these cheap services, does it actually have the impact that we want it to have? Like, for example, there's this website, I think it's the same website from Wix.com, and it designed logos for you. So you tell them what kind of business you are, and then you give them some ideas on what you want, and they will give you a logo, right? But we all know that like real big companies, they put millions of dollars into making one logo, right? And so what exactly is the difference between spending $5 of subscription making a logo versus $100,000 making a logo? Like, is it even necessary to have a cheap logo? Or like, what's the impact? Is it worth the $5 to make a cheap logo, or you actually didn't even need a logo in the first place?
Yeah, I actually think it depends on what you want, right? Like, if you so like you have to ask yourself, like, what is the purpose of a logo, right? Like, let me give you another example. Like in the case of a website, right? Like I personally just want a website that just works, like does its job, like shows my work, for instance, a portfolio website, and it just works, So I don't necessarily need to go and hire a creative to build that when there's already templates that are good enough, that does this job, right? Or like in the case of a logo, like if you just need a logo that just like defines the brand on a small scale, then like I don't think like there's a problem with hiring getting a cheap logo or like a normal mark that just does its job, right? But like on a large scale brand that wants to define itself and kind of communicate a certain message to the audience, then in that case you would go for like high end paid logos, right? So it depends on what you want, right? Like if you want something that does the job and just works, then like there's that, and yeah, like it's the goal, it's the purpose of each template or logo,
Reinbeck, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what do you think? Like, for example, when you said that you're doing graphic design work also in your company, like, do you think some of the things that you do actually didn't need your effort, you putting effort into designing? Like, some of the thing perhaps you can just let these online services do it for you instead. Do you think it is necessary to have those services?
Yeah. Well, I think the services are, as you mentioned already, are really geared towards people who are just starting out, like setting up their own small business, for instance. For them, it would be nice to have a cheap and quick way to start your website, create a logo, or for instance, social media presence, super important. So to do that, you need social media posts that look nice. And you go to Canva, right? Canva.com. It's
yeah. I wanted to ask that. What's your thought on Canva?
Yeah,
because I started using it as well.
Yeah, it's it's really nice for people who are not capable of creating their own like graphic designs, visuals in like Photoshop or something. Especially given the fact that Photoshop is not cheap.
Yeah.
So it's very nice for people like that. But for the higher end, it's just, these
doesn't
templates
offer anything, right?
Yeah, it doesn't really offer anything except for maybe inspiration. You can just browse Canva for inspiration, I guess. But for me personally, these websites are not of much use during especially work. But if I want to whip up something fast, and it really doesn't matter that it's like $1 million design, then I can definitely use Canva. It's really easy and fast. So yeah, but I think what you mentioned previously, Kai, about the difference between a $5 logo and $1 million logo, that's just the value that you put in the logo and in the brand. So if you value your logo at $5, then probably you're not too serious about what you're starting, or you just don't have the money. One of the two.
I think that's pretty interesting, because I also thought about like when like you said, either they don't care about what they're doing, that's why they don't want to pay that amount of money, which is kind of like a not like a debate, but a thing that I have going on with my clients, because sometimes some like potential clients that I'm talking to, and then they're like, oh, I don't want to spend this amount of money on this commercial. Then I would question them, saying that, does it really matter to you? Because if it doesn't matter to you, then we shouldn't even do it on the first place. Like why you're trying to make a cheap video commercial for, let's say, $500. Like this thing, if you want the impact that you want it to have, then it requires this amount of money, right? This is one thing. And another thing is that they don't have enough money. So I think it's more fair to say that this is for people who doesn't want to spend so much time on it, but they need it, like Ibrahim said, or that they don't have enough money. Which is, for me, like when I started to use Squarespace for my company, it's because I don't know how to make a website. I had to, right? So that's the only website I know how to use. So I need to use Squarespace. But I do have a question though. Like, when do you think is the time when people need to pay for a customized artwork? When should people stop using Epidemic Sound, for example? Because I do pay musicians to make music for me, but a lot of time, and I think it's kind of like weird. Sometimes I take like a reference music from Epidemic Sound, and then I put it just to put over my commercial, and I give it to the artist and ask them to make something similar. But which I find it might be insulting to some musician, because like I'm not letting you doing what you want to do. But at what point should an artist stop using these kind of thing, or is it gonna stay? Are these websites meant to stay, and it's gonna affect how we do our artwork? Because like, even I know some high-end company, they're so rich, okay, they're a production company, but they use Epidemic Sound for reference, or they use Artlist. They just use it to first build the emotion. So I feel like these companies, the website, they haven't just took over the lower end. They kind of infiltrated the high end in a way, like they changed how they would do work. So like, what is the future of the high end industry now? Like, are we gonna change? Like, is the value of the high end industry decreased because of these low end? How the low end seem to be like? Because back then artwork is expensive all the way. Every type of artwork is pretty much expensive. But now we can pretty much categorize like, oh, these automated one, or like these website ones, or like customized one. Ibrahim, what do you think about the future of this creative industry? Is it going to be affected by these websites?
Yeah, I honestly don't know, like, why. Like, I usually think about it, but I don't have a definite answer. But my theory is that, like, usually, like, let's say you're using like Epidemic Sound, right? Like, it's I think, like, okay, let's say you use one track that has been used before, right? Let's say you use two tracks that have been used before, but it's just the juxtaposition of these two tracks, or like the kind of combination of these two tracks. Like you chose this like segment, while the other person who have used this track chose another segment from this track. And I think that is where the creativity comes from. It's just this different usage of what is already there, right? And it's the different juxtaposition of things together that kind of leads into a creative output, right? But I don't know, like, I don't know when actually should, like, what's going to happen in the near future when these things have been overused, or like when you hear the same track that has been used over and over and over, or became very famous, you know. I necessarily don't know. I would love to hear your thought also, Ryan Beck, if you, like, what do you think about that? Yeah, but like, so far I think it's just that, like, when you use things in a different way at a different positions, that kind of leads into different outputs, right? Even though it's the same kind of ingredients, right?
That's true. I mean, that's just the creative process, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you don't really create anything from scratch, from like absolute zero. You still, even when drawing, you don't draw something that doesn't exist. You draw something that it's in front of you, or you thought about, and it's an existing, object or whatever. So it's, or when making music, for instance, samples, these days music are, I mean, it was always the case, I guess. Music is made of samples from other songs and stuff like that. So the creative process is the way, what you described is, I guess, the creative process. Taking and picking and choosing, according to your taste, what would combine nicely. So
yeah, everything is a remix, right? I think Kai, you read this book, Still Like an Artist, I think, right?
Right.
And
the other
there was a
book, the other
chapter,
book.
there was a chapter that says everything is a remix, you know, and basically the author talks about like you can't really invent something original, you know, you always kind of pick and choose different resources and combine them together to come up with something different, you know, because everything that we've seen is just it's a reflection of our past experience, you know, everything that has been already done, you know.
Yeah.
Goes back to music, to like stock photography, but it's just how you use it and the different resources that you kind of combine that kind of lead into a creative output, I think.
But that's kind of the thing that I was thinking about also, like if you say that this the way that we combine things together, because I always say like creativity also is like you can find the relationship between two things that doesn't seem to have a relationship.
Yes.
You know, and also
It's
that's comedy.
connection.
Sometimes we see memes that you see a guy doing a weird thing and then you say when you blah blah blah, like you type a very relatable caption on it and it becomes funny because it doesn't seem to relate to each other, but you find a relationship, right?
Yeah.
But do you guys think, I'm going to throw it to both of you, that it's possible for an AI to recognize relationship between two things and thus create some sort of creativity artwork? Like, do you think AI is going to be able to find the mood of different music and put them together? And so maybe in the future, just an assumption, like we should throw a video to an AI and it's going to give us the music that it needs. It's not going to produce new music, but it's going to choose the right music for this scene, let's say, or this commercial, or any sort, or even maybe it's going to make its own music. Do you guys think it's possible?
Possibly, yeah. I think.
How about
I think-
Rainbig?
I think absolutely. It already exists to some degree. I don't remember exactly the name of this AI, but there was this. It generates music based on the style of music that you input. So, for instance, let's say you put something like an 80s retro, disco track or something like that, and you ask it to play like a very slow and melodic, like Adele song or whatever, and it can combine the two and create an Adele song that is made in like an 80s style disco track. So I mean, it's
but
not
is
perfect.
it completely new though? Is it like a completely new song? Like it doesn't, you don't hear Adele inside. Is it like it has its own
voice?
like, DNA inside? Yeah.
No. It's basically like if a human like DJ would make a remix of two tracks. It's something like that.
That's pretty
So-
scary though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound all that good, but some moments it sounds like an actual song that doesn't exist.
So the idea is there, but like the execution is not quite there.
Yeah,
right?
it's still lacking. So
But it
I
means
don't-
that it's only just gonna be better though. If it
Sure.
has a direction already, it's just only gonna be better.
true.
Yeah.
But that means Ibrahim, was it?
No, I was gonna ask a question like for you, Kai, like when you are working on a project for a client, like I want to know like what do they actually think about when you kind of do that, when you kind of pick a music or when you kind of use a template, or like what's their thought on this, like the clients that you worked with so far, and also Rainbig also.
I would say first of all, I think like I feel I'm betraying the film industry by using like a template music because like as far as I know, Christopher Nolan, he really hated it. I think he called it like, there's a word for that, it's called tent music. It's like they say, if you think this music fits this scene, then whatever you do is just gonna get further away from the reference. You get it? It's like if you pick a music you think it really fits this whole commercial, and then you tell someone to make something similar to it, whatever they do is going to be something a bit different from what you want originally. So it's not going to be fit perfectly. I think that's what he meant. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So he usually talked to the musician, and then he let the musician, which is like Hans Zimmer, we all know, like he make amazing track for his music. And Christopher Nolan just tell him the type of thing that he want, but Hans Zimmer will be the one who create everything from scratch technically. So,
but not everyone has Hans Zimmer, you know. Not everyone
Exactly.
knows a Hans Zimmer and has the budget. So
Yeah,
I wonder what's like Nolan's thoughts about this. Like,
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, if we have low budget, like, obviously we have to do it. But the thing is, when I show it to the client, that's actually a very interesting question also, because when I show it to the client just have this it just stuck in their head, the music that I put in. So whatever I give them later on, if it's a bit different from it, they also kind of have to get used to it again. If you understand what I'm trying to say, like, even if it's like what I'm seeing in this music is different from what they saw. Maybe what I saw is the rhythm, the mood, and all the stuff, but the client, they care about the melody. So when the beat and the mood is all fit what I wanted, but the melody is different, they feel like it's a totally different thing. So like I just kind of have to go back and forth with them. But at the end of the day, like I just tell them that like I have to convince them. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to deal with this kind of situation. I don't know what Rainbake think about this kind of situation. Like,
Yeah,
do you think is it hard to convince them?
I guess so. I mean, music is one of the most important things in video. So if you're gonna cheap out
definitely
on, you know, on your audio, I mean, if you have the resources, even if it's not high budget, you can still hire a musician. Maybe it's not gonna be Hans Zimmer or Ludwig Göransson or something like that, but I think any custom made song that fits the scene or the video is still better than a template or an pre-existing song. I mean, depending on what it is, but
yeah. I mean, actually, I kind of like, I want to agree with this, but like the templates are usually based off like very good musicians, you know. I mean, obviously that's different from a template to template or a song ready-made song to song, and like it depends on the person that you're hiring for the job, right? Like the musician that you're hiring, and like he or she might produce something that is better, or they might just screw it all up, you know. And the template might end up better or more fitting for your music. And so I don't know, I just think there are a lot of nuances to that, you know. And hey, like maybe the template might kind of fit on whatever footage that you're playing and work perfectly, but I get where like this idea comes from, that you need to customize everything, but yeah, I don't know like the practicality of it, or like how feasible it is to apply every time.
But
Yeah.
I think from a commercial standpoint, which is something Ibrahim, you and I, we talked about, it's like, I heard, I think it's from Crystal, they said that if this whole automation thing is gonna work eventually, then as an artist, the last thing that we have, which is the strategy and the message of everything. Because like you said, if we can just select whatever we had and everything's like made already, then our strategy of selecting which
That
music
is where the
or
creativity
which stock
comes from.
footage to use. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like our choices become extremely crucial to the whole thing, because that is what's gonna make the difference between us and other people who use the same, you know, stock footage website or stock music website, right?
Yeah, 100%. It goes back to like the strategy thinkers. You're more of a thinker than a maker, you know, at this day and age. You are the director. You get to pick all these tools and combine them together in a way that kind of fits your needs, right? And 100%.
Because the strategy is kind of like the message that you want to give to the target audience or the clients, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think is gonna be like. I believe it is, and I was gonna talk with that. Like I think I told you about this, right, Rainbig? Like they said that they believe strategy is gonna be the crucial part for artists in the future, rather than the skill itself. I that's why I wanted to hear your take on this thing.
I think, I mean, it's a very interesting subject, and I don't know if you can at this point we can say for sure what it's going to be like, but definitely the change is happening. So if you are an artist, if you want to be more successful as an artist, you need to develop some sort of skills for strategy, as you mentioned, or setting certain goals for clients and things like that, becoming more of a business consultant or something like that. You need to develop those skills if you want to be a better artist, right? You want your client to have like a vision for their brand, or not just one piece of artwork, but like long-term kind of vision. So to do that, you need to develop a certain type of skill sets. So yeah, I agree with that notion, but not necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily gonna change completely. Artists becoming like strategic consultants. I think it will be a mix of both. And to be a really good artist, even now, you need to have some skills of strategic vision and of creating like a brand, like a meta brand, not just within one commercial or within just the logo.
Yeah.
The thing is, even these websites exist, like these stock websites exist, as a non-artist, the clients, they still don't know which one to choose. So kind of like if you're the strategy consultant, you're kind of like helping them going through these phases and telling them what should they do to pick the best result, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a brand strategist, I would say.
Yeah. It's a different niche.
Exactly. Ibrahim, do you have anything else to say?
I think we covered pretty much like a lot of the stuff that I had in mind, especially. So yeah, I think we can end it there if you guys are.
Yeah, because I saw the clock ticking. I think we're pretty much ending here for this episode.